Good evening again. Before I hand over to the event, which is our speakers, followed by our comedian Ben, I just need to say a few words. First of all, I'm really sad that Shosheka isn't with us tonight. She can't be here. And I've got a lot of nice things, which because it's all recorded. When I was talking about what I was going to say, I started how we got here today, how we got here for this Siyum Megillah. And really it started with a lady called Shoshana, who a huge amount of work to set up learning in Yamin, in Poleg, and across, and putting in people across Netanya, eventually setting up Link, the learning initiative for the community, which became an umbrella organization for all these different Netanya communities, so that we all start to come together and share our learning. And she has been a wonderful, inspirational galvanizer of learning in this community. She has started a wave of learning and of Jewish knowledge and of interest in our Messiah. She's absolutely inspirational. She was my inspiration. We took up the challenge up here with Yinspire, and I know all our constituent communities have all done a great deal of work to carry on what she initiated. With the first thing was the Kohelet Siyum. We did the Kohelet Siyum. It was very successful. Several couple of months of learning of Kohelet and then a Siyum. And most of us would have been up at that point and said, well, that's fine, we've done that. But not Shoshana. She pushed us on and said, we're going to do that. I think we're going to do as well. And that's her. She pushes you on to do more and more. So before I got this evening to make it so nice, and to thank also already Des, who is our audio comes out especially to help us with the audio visuals. And we have sponsors for this evening: Avil Gatov, Debbie Ashenheim, Vivian Siminoff, and Jackie James. And when the speakers come up, they will be referencing a couple of names which are associated with those sponsorships. So thank you very much for your help in putting on this. Right, I'm not going to carry on anymore. I'm going to hand over to Rabbi Dr. Johnny, who's going to take over and MC and speak. Okay.
Thanks very much. And just want to reiterate Anna's comments about Shoshana. Unfortunately, she can't be here tonight. Shoshana has been the linchpin of all of our learning across Netanya for a few years now. And I've had the privilege of being with her on this journey, and it's been quite a journey. When I first came to Poleg, almost 15 years ago, it was a bit of a midbar down there in terms of Jewish learning. Now it is absolutely thriving, and a lot of that is down to Shoshana, and so we give her a big focus. So one of North Netanya, who are our sister community, because we're also a young Israel in Poleg, although I'm not sure we are really a young Israel, because we're called Young Israel. So thank you very much, Israel North Netanya, for hosting us tonight. One of the important things that we wanted to do, Anna and I, to spread out learning, not just in Poleg and Yamin, but into the other areas as well, and to bring it the umbrella. We were all learning together, as it were. And it's pleasing able to come here tonight into North Netanya. Most of the events that we've saw now have been in the south. And it's really a pleasure for us to be. Thank you very much for hosting us here tonight. Another thing I want to say that right, Philip, I wasn't talking about you, Philip. I wasn't talking about you. Let's be honest, you know, Young Israel of North Netanya and Poleg, we are beyond the first flush of youth. Let's put it that way. You know, let's be honest. From Kiryat HaSharon, which for those of you who don't know is in the east of Netanya, just on the other side of the stadium. And that is, if those of you who haven't been, have to experience it, it is the most fabulous area. It is teeming with young people and packed with children. Every corner there's a gan. It is absolutely fabulous. It's where I would want to go and live when I was 30 years young. And we have managed to get them involved in this as well. And they are the future of our Netanya community. Their community is called Shevet Achim, and they are embarking on a very exciting project. They have just managed, with the help of some serious donors, to purchase a building or part of a building, and they're going to have a brand new shul over there in Kiryat HaSharon. But they need more money, by the way. They need more money. So it's a big plug for them. They need more money. But that's going to be what they want this to be is to be a center of learning, not just a place to daven for them. It's going to be a place of learning for the whole of Netanya. It's going to be a hub. It's a beautiful place. And if they get the money, they're going to do it out beautifully. And it's going to be a hub for learning. So it's absolutely brilliant that we have Kiryat HaSharon, Shevet Achim here with us tonight and had been part of this program. So they're here and they're going to take part, and they have been. Let me just explain how we're going to go through the evening. We're going to have four speakers, each going to be speaking for around about 10 minutes about an aspect of Megillah Esther that they've been learning. We're going to have one speaker from Young Israel, North Netanya, Rabbi Dr. Brian Sopher, and then we're going to have Naomi Weintraub, who's part of our community down in Poleg Yamim, followed by Yisrael Fletcher from Kiryat HaSharon, and I will bring up the rear and be the last speaker. Following which, we will have some refreshments, and at that, we will be entertained by Benji Lovett, who we're delighted to have here with us. So that's the program for the evening. So we'll start, first of all, with Rabbi Dr. Brian Sopher, who needs no introduction to you guys here in the north. But for those of you who don't know Brian, those of you who are not from the north, Brian is, well, he's a bit like me, really. He started off life as a doctor, and then he became a rabbi, like me. So he is now very much part of this community here in North Netanya, giving shiurim and leading lots of the learning that goes on here. And we are delighted that Brian is going to share with us here a few thoughts for Megillah Esther. Make sure you start.
Thank you, John, for that interesting introduction. I think we've known each other for, well, more than 30 odd years at least. Not only both rabbis, we both had the pleasure or the privilege of looking after the health of people living in North Manchester, a wonderful part of the United Kingdom. I'd like to start this drasha by thanking my colleagues in the North Netanya Study Circle. As Emma said, one of the highlights, one of the things that happened after the Kohelet Siyum, or during the Kohelet Siyum series, is that Emma cajoled all of us to get involved in our own study circle. What we do is quite unique, is that we meet once a week in the evenings on Zoom, about a dozen of us, and we discuss, at the moment we're meeting Sopher Yoshua. It's an interactive group, and that each person, it's not just me talking all the time, even though some people do find it a little difficult to understand. Different people will take different discusses the chapters. Then we have a discussion. The last. The beauty of this is that if each person owns what they study and each person can understand it, the more you actually study for yourself, the more self-education happens. Also, more importantly, and I slightly sad note, people who have sponsored this evening and some who are around our community, specifically, Yecheskel Yehuda ben Jacob ben Sheba Shendo. We hope that the Almighty will look after all these people and make sure that the full refuah shalema. In any talk that I give, we have to remember our old IDF and the members of the security services. They're standing on guard, as we say in the prayer, to guard us wherever they are, on land and sea and the air. This point in the 2023, it's a junction, but we hope that our soldiers will have the strength to be successful. That's an important thing. We also pray there are still hostages in Gaza, and every time I see videos of what's happened to these people who got out, I think it just makes you cry, makes you think we must get these people free at some point. Please God, they should be free. I talk always with thanks to Hashem. I will not be able to talk without the thank of Hashem who's given me the Chachma, Vina, and Dat to talk to. So what we do with Megillah Esther? Well, we had lots of talks all over. We had lots of talks on Sunday evenings, and the one that actually interested me most was Rabbi Zaram, and he talked about the historical context, and that got me thinking: where can I read more about the facts? Is Megillah Esther a fairy story, or is it not? When we're in shul, and please God, we'll be in shul Thursday night, Friday morning, everybody's excited, dressed up. There's all the razzmatazz. But the story is much more intricate. There's much more interesting things going on. So this is where we're going to start. This is my ideas for the topic tonight, the historical context. So we noticed that the Gemara Masechet Megillah talks a great deal about in fact, it's the only book that the Gemara actually analyzes almost line by line. But there's somebody else who analyzed it, and we're going to look for historical fact. At the time of the Megillah, there was the father of history, the Greek father of history called Herodotus, and he's written extensively about who came, what happened, and the wars that waged. And this, I think, it plays into the story on the side that I found fascinating. So who's the king? We all know the king's called Achashverosh. That's great. But who is Achashverosh really? In the British Museum, there are lots of artifacts that have come from Nineveh. I also think it's called the Elgin Marbles that Greek wants back. Greek wants back his Elgin Marbles. The Iraqis don't want the things from Nineveh. But there are also lots of steels and stele steels and clay tablets that were found in the two cities involved in the Persian Empire, Persepolis and Shan. And in these steels, we found the name, I'll get the name correct. The name is Achashverasha. Say it quickly, it's Achashverosh. So this would be Achashverosh. Now, the Greeks would have written Achashverosh, and their CH is written like an X. So if you transpose Achashverosh to X and X, you get Xerxes. Oh! Xerxes. So now there's something that seems happening in historical context. And this gives us the idea, the background to the Megillah. Now, what happened is that we all know that Nebuchadnezzar, as the Babylonians conquered the state of Judea and ransacked the temple, within 70 years Nebuchadnezzar had died, Belshazzar, his son, had died, and the empire was taken over by the Medes and the Persians, Achashverosh, or let's call him Achashverosh. It's much easier to call him that. The Megillah opens in the 3rd year of the reign of Achashverosh. What was he doing for 3 years? There's also another gap. There's another 4-year gap between after the end of the party and creating the queen. And then there's another 7-year gap between the Queen Esther being crowned and Haman. So what's going on here? What's actually happening? And this is the importance of the idea that Herodotus is able to tell us what's happening. Ahasuerus' father was Darius. Darius had usurped the crown from the Babylonians, and he wanted to consolidate his unions. He had battles against he had battles against Egypt to consolidate his empire, which was very good. In the 3 years, what happened was in the beginning of Ahasuerus' reign, he took to the seas and he took to battle against the Greeks. The famous Battle of Salamis. He lost. So that's why at the end of the 3rd year, he comes back to the palace to lick his wounds and to create more money. What do kings need? Kings need money. And to get money, you've got to consolidate your empire. So consolidate his empire, here's a 180-day feast. At 6 months, if you think about it, the empire stretches for 127 provinces. You've got a new person coming every week for a party to see how good the king was. The king had decked the palace in all these wonderful robes, and there was a beautiful looking palace. We have this in modern day times. Think of all the people who are going to see President Trump, who are bowing down at the Gate Trump edifice. It's exactly the same thing. History doesn't change. So at the end of all this, Xerxes or Ahasuerus holds the banquet in Shushan, at the end of the 180 days. And that's the 7-day party. But why does Vashti not appear? Again, there's a historical context for Vashti. Who was Vashti? She was not just the queen. She was a direct descendant of Nebuchadnezzar. She was royal link. And there is comments that Ahasuerus and Darius, they'd been stable boys. So she was of a higher linkage than he was. She was a higher lineage than the king. That's why she wouldn't do what she was told. She wouldn't want to appear that way. She wouldn't want to do that. Okay. In the Megillah, there's another 4 after Vashti is banished. There appears to be 4 years where the king's choosing his new mate. It takes 4 years to find Esther, but during that time, what's he doing? Well, according to Herodotus, he's trying to get more money to sell more and to sell against the Greeks, the Greek Empire. I mean, Herodotus is biased. He's always in favor of the Greeks. He calls the Persians the barbarians because they couldn't understand what they talk. But again, during this period, this is when they sail. We have the fleet is defeated. We have the Battle of Thermopylae and Marathon. All these things you know about. This takes place at the same time as the Megillah. After the king, queen, big thing will ever after. But then there's a 7-year gap. And during that 7-year gap, we don't know whether Esther conceived. We don't hear anything about that. We don't hear anything about Esther. What's happening what's happening? We know at the end of the 7 years, Haman becomes the viceroy. What's happening? Here, we have to go and look at what the Assyrians did. And the Persians copied a system from the Assyrians. What they do in that time, so I read, and the reading that I did was actually based on a little book I found in one of these open libraries. You know, when you're in Jerusalem and you walk down the park behind the first station, and you walk down what used to be the railway track, there's a little book station there, and I picked up a little book called The Historical Content of the Megillah, Yonah, by Daniel Rosenberg, no relation to my family. So what is he writes, the Assyrians have this idea, this thing. The box, the poor box, and the king would choose one person each year. He would be the ruler, he would be the viceroy. So the king would go through the list of his nearest and dearest, and it mentioned mentioned at the beginning of the Megillah the first 5 people. And at the end of time, he's going to get Haman, because Haman, nobody else. So Haman is the 7th man on the list. That's why it takes 7 years, I think, for Haman to become the viceroy. Another thing that is interesting in the Megillah is that everybody has to bow down to man. Well, according to the historical fact, the Persian society was built with actually on a slightly hierarchical basis. If there was somebody on the same level, you would go and kiss them on the cheek. If there's somebody who was a higher level than you would go and kiss them and you would go and kiss them on the lips because they were higher. But if someone was lower than you, they all had to bow down. That's why Haman realized I've got to the second top, so people must all bow down to me. But we all know that Mordecai doesn't bow. Two reasons might be because of the idol, but more importantly, Mordecai was a colleague of Haman's in the army. Therefore, he didn't feel that Haman was of any lesser status than him. So, I think what I've tried to tell you is that there's lots of statements in the Megillah which appear to be random, appear to be fairy stories. But the last one I'm going to tell you about is the banquets. It's always puzzled me, why does Esther have two banquets? We know after the first banquet, the king goes away and can't sleep. And people said he can't sleep because Haman's going to take over his creed. He fears for his own life. He fears that Haman has designs on him and the whole of the empire, because Haman shouldn't be at that feast. It should only be for the king and queen. But perhaps there's another reason. And one of the reasons I read was that it was quite common when they had these feasts, the people would get so drunk and sozzled, they wouldn't remember what happened till the next morning. So it's quite normal to have a second feast to understand what had happened. Therefore, this is just my ideas in the historical context, the historical background that leads us into the Megillah. And I hope from this, with other people's talks, we'll get some other ideas and other aspects about this most fascinating story. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.